Welcome to Barbells, Business, and Boobs, where we discuss navigating everyday life as lifters. Sorry, guys, I just messed. I'm going to start over. I don't know why I just did that. Yeah, I don't know.
You can keep playing, and I'll just trim it.
Are you sure? Just so you don't have to edit it. I'll just start over. Sorry, it's been a long day. I had 2 podcasts before this, so just okay.
Take a breath.
Welcome to Barbells, Business, and Boobs, where we discuss navigating everyday life as lifters, business owners, and being a woman in a male-dominated industry. Today, we are so excited to have none other than professional strongwoman Erin Murray. Welcome, Erin.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
So Christy and I have known you. It's funny, have you guys competed together before?
Yeah, I think my first nationals, which was in 2019.
Yeah.
Did you do strong? I think that might have been one of the only times.
That would have been my third nationals, I think, 2019. Because that was the year that I won.
Yeah.
And I guess kind of.
Exactly. And I was so new at that point too. I just knew Erin was really good. And so I wasn't really like, I'm up against Erin. It was more like, I'm surviving here. What's going on? This is my second contest. So, but yeah, so we go back way back. So it's really cool to see the evolution of Erin over the years, and just it's been super, super inspiring. So I'm really glad. I was like, we have to get Erin on before the Arnold, because you've been busy. Like, you just got done with World, so congratulations on that, by the way.
Yeah, so that was the third one. I got very small for that show, so this has been a hell of a rebound. But
yeah, we definitely want
73 kilo show. So we're going from that to an open show in 4 weeks now. It's been busy. It's been a lot.
We definitely will touch on that. But first, you have a bunch of records, titles. Give us an overview on that.
Yeah, so I think I pride myself in being well-rounded. So I don't actually have a lot of world records. I think people like those and they're flashy, but I pride myself in being well-rounded and not really being the best at anything. So I feel like that's the whole point of the sport, is not like being the best at anything, but not sucking at anything either. So I think the thing that I'm most proud of is my ability to jump weight classes. So I'm the only athlete in the sport that has world titles in multiple weight classes. I've won it twice in the 73 kilo division and once in the 82. That's probably my proudest accomplishment. I've also represented Team USA at a Giants Live show, World's Strongest Nation. That was a really big deal because that was kind of the first time they brought non-UK women over into one of their shows. That's something I'm really, really proud of. I've won America's Strongest Woman in the 82 kilo class. I won nationals in 2019, which is when I got my middleweight pro card. And then as far as I know, I'm also the only weight class athlete that's ever won the Open Arnold. So that's where I got my heavyweight pro card, and that's what got me into the Arnold Strongwoman Classic Pro Series.
What was your background? I actually don't even know the answer to this as far as sports growing up.
Not. My dad, I think, really wanted kids that played sports. And so my dad made me play a sport pretty much at all points in my childhood. I was terrible at all of them and I hated all of them. I was a lot more academically and musically inclined. So I played piano and French horn. I was in marching band. So people tease me about that, but I actually do think I get a lot of kind of athletic foundational skills from marching band, like breath control. And my high school took it so seriously too. We did conditioning and workouts, and our band camp was 8 hours a day. So it wasn't non-active, but as far as athletic background, not.
Do you still play any instruments today?
Not really. I have a keyboard that I'll sit down and play on every once in a while. French horn's a really hard one to pick up. My conditioning is just gone. And so I get tired after playing for 5 minutes. So that one's kind of hard. I enjoy music, but I don't really have time to sit and practice the way that I used to. And I'm really bad about casually enjoying hobbies. If I do something, I want to really do it and invest in it and be good at it. And so it's hard for me to go back and not take it as seriously.
Right now is strongman just taking over 100% of that time, where you're not really doing any other hobbies. It's just all full of your strongman career.
A little bit. I've tried to kind of challenge myself to have fun more. That's something that I've struggled with a lot over the years, is like taking things too seriously. But also just like the things that I find fun and the enjoyment that I get out of life are more like physically active, and like there are with my gym family, and like even if it's not training, the things that I find fun are also kind of in that environment, and I think that's okay too.
Your gym family is like none other. I've met a couple of them at the Arnold. They all come out and support you. And then I was at the Shot Classic, and a bunch of them were doing the grip stuff. And we were talking about you, and I was talking about how we judged together, and it was so fun. And I regret when I lived in Washington, I didn't have a car, but I really, really regret. And that's one of my goals, is to come to your gym to see it. Because even like on social media, it looks like you guys are always having fun with like your funny reels and your funny challenges.
Yeah, it's a great community. It's a good family. It's like it's a family that's kind of like grown together over the years. And even as people come into it and get added to the group, I think everyone's just really accepting, and we're all there working towards something. Like everyone there also works really hard, and there's that like respect that we're all working towards things. But yeah, just it's supposed to be fun too, and it's cool to have people that are like supportive of all the big goals, but then also want to make it fun and have fun with you. And like we have people that move here for this gym, like it's, which is crazy to me. Like there's people that we have in our like training group now that like moved here for Dungeon. And like I'll admit, I would not live here anymore if it wasn't for Dungeon. Like that's what's keeping me here. I don't hate Washington, but like it's the only reason that I have to live here, and it's really hard to leave, because it's not just like the facility has everything that we need, but like that community and like training environment is so hard to replicate.
It's so true.
I definitely have gym envy for real, and I love Washington, so I'm also like envious of Washington. But I was actually talking. I know you're talking about Sarah Johnson. She told me that she moved there for the gym, and I'm like, well, I can relate, because it's just so important to have an environment like that. I remember when I was in California, there was like so many strongman gyms. There's just so much equipment, so many communities. And then when I moved out here, it's like me and Gary and our stuff, you know, like trying to grow a community here. So I just feel like that, you know, do you think that's made a big difference in your training, like you excelling? Like, do you train, like, are you kind of solo when you train, or do you talk to people and get their expertise?
It kind of depends. It is hard. There are parts that I miss about like having a bigger training group. I think a lot of times I'm doing shows that no one else is doing. At least over the past couple of years, it's felt like that. It's cool because we're having more like Lucas and AJ are both doing the Arnold too. So like that's really cool. We're all training for the same show, which is nice, because I feel like it's been a while since I had like people that I was training for the same show with. A lot of my training, it's kind of like by myself around other people. Makes sense. Like we all have different coaches and different programs, so we'll be doing different things. But it's always like surrounded by people that are really supportive. And it does make a difference. I think ultimately, if something matters to you enough, you'll find a way. So like I had years of training in like college rec centers and trying to like sneak like makeshift equipment in to train with, and driving hours on the weekends to strongman gyms. And like for years I trained by myself. And I think if you love something enough and it matters to you, you're going to make it work. But after years of doing that, it is nice to be in a spot now where I don't have to anymore, and I have everything that I need. It's kind of like come full circle to a place where it's like I've worked through all that, and now I have like the perfect training environment.
Yeah, you definitely earned it and proved yourself. So I feel like with strongman too, and I tell this to my clients all the time, it's like the sport where you have to make it happen. Either you're getting the equipment and doing all the things, and just it takes a lot of effort just to train, or you're moving somewhere that actually has this stuff. So I just think that's awesome.
It's
really great to see like that.
To be really great at, unless you're like all in and willing to do that stuff.
Right.
And it's not that you have to like I think to be the best at anything, you kind of have to be all in, but strongman even more so. Like you can't just walk into any gym and train strongman. Like you have to be willing to go out of your way and like make equipment and get creative. And I think that's part of what's cool about it. But it does require you to be a little crazy, I think.
Yeah. It was funny because Christy, I knew you were going to say, I was going to say for us, like we're both a little jealous because we don't have that strongman environment. I used to, and I was like you, Erin, other people at your gym, I purposely moved to the area when I was doing strongman after college to do that. And now in Vegas, it's growing, which is exciting. But Christy and Gary are like, I call them the Martha Stewart's do it yourself of strongman, because they're always being super creative. And exactly like you said, people like, for me, we all have clients. so we can get into that later too. You know how people come to you initially like, I'm all in. And then when you're like, okay, look, you're going to have to simulate this or give them some creative ideas, then they're kind of like, I can tell really quickly if someone's going to be successful or not just by if they're willing to do odd lifts in the gym.
Yeah. Yeah, I think everyone's version of all in is a little different. And that's okay, but you have to have a conversation about that.
Yeah. So would you say like, well, obviously I think right now we can all say you're all in because it seems like your life, I mean, where you live is, is dictated right now by like your training and everything. Do you ever see that mindset shifting at all or?
Yes and no. I think it has shifted a lot over like the last year or two. But again, it goes back to like what all in means to me looks different. And I do still think that I'm all in. It just looks different. And that kind of goes back, I was saying earlier, like I used to take things way too seriously. And I like had this mindset of like it's almost like I wasn't allowed to have fun. Like everything had to be with purpose and towards a goal. And like I wouldn't take a vacation in the middle of a prep. Like I wouldn't go out with friends. Like it was all like to a T. And like that was my version of all in. Like I am willing to sacrifice everything, including my own happiness, to be good at this. And I think I've had a switch where like I'm realizing being happy is pretty important, and like being mentally healthy helps me perform better. And like there are certain things that might on paper look like the wrong decision or something that's like not in line with my goals, but it actually ends up being productive. I actually remember the first time I kind of did that. I went and trained with Martins in February last year, right before the Arnold. And like, I would have never taken a trip like 5 weeks out from a show, like traveling and like messing up my food routine and my training routine and a new training environment. All of that was like a no-go. And like, I was kind of expecting training to go shit that week. It was my best training week of prep. And I think it's just because like I let myself relax and have fun and enjoy training. And it wasn't like following a process. It was just like getting back to what I love about the sport, which is like connecting with people in community and new gym environments. And so I've tried to bring more of that into my life this past year. And it's funny now, after years of like taking things so seriously, I think now I'm like, me and AJ are so associated with like the gym shenanigans videos. And like, I go to events and people are like, oh my God, you guys have so much fun. Like all your challenges and shenanigans and all that stuff. And it's funny to me that I'm associated with like the fun aspect of the sport now, when like for years I didn't let myself have fun doing it. So I don't know, long-winded way, like coming around saying like, yes, I am all in, but it looks different now because I think that having fun is equally as important.
I agree. I actually vividly remember that post and then I messaged you and said like, that's so awesome. And then I scrolled up in our conversation. It must have been like 6 months prior because I was still or maybe a year prior. I can't remember the exact timeline, but we were talking a lot when I was in your area, and we were talking about like different depression treatments and stuff like that. So we can get into that after. But first, I don't know this. I'm asking you a lot of questions that I don't know, so it's really fun to interview you. How did you initially get into strongman?
Long time ago. So it kind of is a snowball effect. So I got into, I guess, fitness and lifting, I guess kind of as a byproduct of an eating disorder. So my second year of college had to drop out, pretty significant mental health issues. I ended up going to like a eating disorder treatment camp thing. And it was awesome. I got really lucky. I went to a great program where it was very movement focused. So we did like martial arts and Tai Chi, and it was very like not focused on food and focused on like appreciating your body for what it could do for you, which was so cool. And I ended up really liking that. I really liked martial arts. And so I kept doing martial arts when I came home. And then it kind of snowballed from there because I started doing CrossFit to get in better shape for martial arts. So then I was like, oh, I like this, but I liked the strength parts of CrossFit more. So that kind of naturally gravitated towards an interest in powerlifting. And I did that for like 3 years, I think. And that's when I decided to go back to school and study exercise science. And then I met some people in college, Zach McCarley and Pat Castelli, who I didn't know at the time were like two of the best weight class strongman athletes in the world. I just kind of happened into being their friend. And they put on like a fundraiser contest to like raise money because they got invited to go compete in Norway. And I just jumped in because they were my friends. I'm like, sure, like I'll support them. It sounds fun. And like I was hooked. It was like that first contest I did. I'm like, oh, this is so much cooler than any other strength sport I've done. And like I never went back. That's a lie. I went back and I tried to do one more powerlifting meet, and it was so boring that I never went back in.
That's so funny. I tell my clients too when they are they maybe want to switch from powerlifting to strongman. I'm like, well, you're gonna have to say bye to powerlifting soon and realize it's boring because it's so fun when you're in it, right? Because you're like realizing like, like people are yelling at the bar and you're lifting this max weight. It's like so fun. But going back to like, it's just crazy because I knew little bits and pieces of your story, but going back to like the eating disorder, it's interesting because I feel like a lot of us who got into strength sports have struggled with eating disorder before, and it's just so crazy to see kind of how far you've come, right? From being obsessing over something that's kind of not as productive to, being in a place where you're the best in the world, right? Of something
Obsessing over
that's
something else.
yeah, obsessing over something else, but putting that energy into something else. So I just think that's just like, so cool. But but also you're kind of launched into, especially you, weight classes. So has that ever, maybe not even now, but in the past, been an ongoing issue for you, just having struggled with an eating disorder in the past?
Yeah, because I don't think it's ever a thing that like just goes away. I think I've done a lot of podcasts and areas people ask me like, how did you get over that? And I don't like, that's not really how mental health works. Like it doesn't just go away, but you just learn how to manage it healthier. And it's something that it does fluctuate for me. Having a really good nutrition coach that I trust is super important because like it's out of my hands. I just do what I'm told, and I trust him, and I know that he knows me well enough and knows like my limits, my boundaries, and what I am and am not okay with. That like I trust that he's never going to have me do something that is going to make me feel shitty or not be productive. So that's really important for me. It's like I trust him. So like even though sometimes like I don't feel so great, we can have a conversation where I tell him like I'm not feeling so great right now, and he's like, I hear that and I understand it, but let's look objectively at like how's your training going? Like what numbers are you hitting? What meet do you have coming up? Like what's most important for the goals right now? And we can have those conversations. That's super important. And then just finding a sport that I really loved and was passionate about. I think even in powerlifting, it was good because it got me eating again. Obviously, like I wanted to get strong and I put on weight, but it wasn't all the way there. Like I still limited myself. I still like I wanted to do well, but I didn't want to do well more than I wanted to look a certain way. And for me, strongman was different. Like I love this sport so much, and I think being in a position of like knowing that I can be like the best in the world at something always outweighs whatever else is going on. So like there are days that I feel really shitty, but I actually keep a picture on my phone of the world's strongest nation, like our podium picture, because that was like a highlight of my career, like the arena and like everything about that experience. And so like if I'm ever feeling like I don't know, feeling the type of way, like I'll look at that and be like, would you be okay with never feeling this way again? And that's kind of like my like that feeling will always outweigh anything else.
So you have a visual reminder. That's exactly what I was going to ask, but you already answered it. So it seems like when you are slightly being triggered, you do two things. First, you talk to your coach so that they can, go over the goals and everything. And then you physically look at your phone. How long has that picture at the podium been your background?
I mean, that's been, that was fall of 23.
Okay.
So since then.
I love that. Will you share that with us after so we can show everyone listening? I think that's really powerful. I've heard of people doing stuff like that before, and that just goes to show you that, like you said, for mental health, eating disorders, I agree with you completely that it never really goes away. Someone once told me, and I think I actually told you this when we were having one of our deep talks for mental health. It's like, it's a beast that you just learn to tame. It never fully goes away. So I love what you
It's like a
said.
thing that you get healed from. It's just, and honestly, I don't think I would want to, because I think there's obviously a lot of symptoms of, whatever mental health issues I've dealt with over the years that are not so great. But like a lot of the things that they've given me are skills that have made me successful and like gotten me to the point in life that I am now. And I don't think just like getting rid of that part of me would be productive either, because then I wouldn't be here. Like there's certain aspects of like being a perfectionist and kind of obsessive and overly competitive and like taken to an extreme end up being really unhealthy for me, but learning how to like calibrate a little bit is why I'm here. And it's why I'm great at what I do.
And I'm sure like over the years too, just learning all those lessons and maybe going through things again and working through them has just made you, smarter, stronger, better at what you do. And seems like happier in general because you're actually doing things. And now you're at the place where you're learning a lesson of like, I need to do things that make me happy. So that's awesome.
So when you went back to school for exercise science, got into strongman, is that when you fully dedicated yourself to in-person training and coaching as well?
For the most part, I knew that I wanted to coach after college. Kind of. Actually, I was in between that. I actually started grad school for athletic training. And I love the field. It just, I started school and I started doing like clinical hours and realized that I didn't love the job. Like I loved learning about it, but 'cause athletic training is more like the injury injury management part of it. And it's like, I just enjoyed being more on the front end of like working with people towards building resiliency instead of like helping them when they're broken. I don't know. Um, so I guess after I came back from grad school, I was kind of all in on coaching. I worked at like a health club here for a while, though. I didn't go all in on like my own coaching business until 21. And that's when I quit my job. And there's a lot of things that went into that. Part of it was wanting a different clientele, but a really big part of it was having a dream of being a professional athlete in a sport where it's really hard to do that as a woman and as a weight class athlete. And so I just kind of knew that if I wanted to be like at the top, I needed to dedicate more of my life to it. And so I kind of, I don't want to say came back down to like part-time work, but like I did start my own business and scaled way back so that I could put more time into like the athlete side of my career, which was a hard choice to make. And I've been kind of back and forth about that over the years. But that was a big driving factor in doing that. Was I felt like that's what I needed to do to be where I wanted as an athlete.
Was that about the time when we chatted on the phone about sponsorships and things? You remember that? So this was way back when. I don't know how helpful I actually was, but Erin asked me, you asked me like, just like it, just about my experience of getting sponsors and stuff like that. Because I mean, it's so cool, but also it's such a double-edged sword. It's like, okay, I want to spend more time training, or so I need to have income. And but then how do I start these relationships with like different brands and stuff like that? And I think how has your experience been with that? Because obviously, like you said, a woman in a weight class sport in the sport of strongman. Like, how has your experience been with that? Because I think I even told Brittany this at one point. I was like, Erin's killing it. I feel like we chatted on the phone a long time ago when you just want to get sponsored stuff like that. And I feel like you've really just like grabbed, you've just like taken control of your business and everything and just have done awesome with that. But that's just from what I see from the outside. So how do you feel? Like what's your experience been with sponsorships and just being a strong woman in general?
It's very frustrating. I think there's been a lot of times over the last few years that I thought I made the wrong choice and I was just going to go back and get a normal job. And I'm glad that I didn't. I think there's been a lot of opportunities that I've gotten over the last couple of years that I couldn't have taken if I had a job with the schedule that I had to show up for. Like I was in a Gymshark ad last year. I was like on a billboard in LA and seeing that. And I was just like, that's so cool. And so there's like moments like that where I'm like we're getting somewhere. The financial side of it's just really hard. Like it's not a sport with a whole lot of money, and not to like make excuses, but it's like most of the big sponsorships and the big money it's the open men. Like that's the big show. And that's not an excuse. That's just kind of like the reality. But there's been a lot of things over the years that this is a topic I'm very passionate about. So I don't want to like,
no, keep going. We love this.
No, but, I'm so I'm interested. I'm interested.
Get all your thoughts out. I love
I'm very passionate about this because like years ago, I had that mentality of like, I've proven I'm the best in the world at something that should just open doors. There should be all these opportunities and sponsorships and people should want to work with me. And there were several things that I kind of saw. I remember one that really stuck out was a post from Dana Lynn Bailey. And she was talking about her Olympia win and how she expected it to like open all these doors. Like she just proved that she's the best in the world at something. And she's like, this is going to be life-changing. And I think she said that she won like 10 grand for winning the Olympia, which like in the grand scheme of things, it probably didn't even pay for everything that she put into that. Like it's not that much. And she said after a couple months, her life just kind of went back to normal. And I remember her talking about that. And I remember vividly Rob commented on it saying, winning gives you the platform, but it's still up to you what you do with that. And that, like, I remember that's like that, like something clicked. And I'm like, oh, like I'm not doing what I need to do for the job that I want. Like I'm sitting here complaining, like, where's my sponsorships? Where's all these opportunities? Like I had this vision of my life. And like, when I sat and actually looked at it, I'm like, I'm not actually doing the work for that. Like there is more to that job than just being a great athlete. And if you look at like the men in the sport that are doing a great job with like their entire brand and like are really doing well, you know, Thor, Eddie, Brian, Hooper are kind of ones that come to mind. Like, yes, they're great athletes, but they also put so much work into like their brands and like their like marketing and like their personal brand and like they put in so much work outside of just training and being an athlete. I was like, oh, like there's more to it than that. And that's, I think, about the time that I called you and I was like, okay, I need to start learning. Cause like there's people out there that have skills that I don't have at this point. Like I had to learn how to talk on podcasts and like I've taken courses on social media and like content creation and video editing. And like, those are things that I never expected to be part of the job of being an athlete, but they are part of the job of being a career athlete if I'm trying to make money. So, and I think the past year is when I've really started taking that a lot more seriously. And I have started seeing more opportunities come up and companies reaching out, wanting to work together. And it's like, on one hand, it's frustrating that just being one of the best athletes in the world isn't enough. But it also was like, there was work I wasn't doing. And as soon as I started doing it, I started seeing things happening. So there are things in the works for this year that I can't talk about yet. But there are things that make it feel like, okay, like this is possible, I guess, at this point. So we're still working toward that. But in a place where like I don't think the vision I have for my life is unrealistic anymore. So that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, you gotta say that, you gotta believe it. And I absolutely am so glad that you talked about, you know, admitting like you weren't doing as much work to be that professional athlete and make it a career, because Christy and I always talk about this. One of our first episodes was about like sponsorships versus influencing and how it's different. And so many times, especially because I live in Las Vegas, so a lot of people come here because they have a dream of bodybuilding. And like you said, Dana Lynn Bailey won the biggest show, the Olympia in the world. And so many people here have dreams. And I'll, in my head, I'm like, these people are great athletes, but they're being lazy when it comes to their career. And you truly need, I almost think it's harder to give 100% to your career when because being an athlete is like a full-time job when it comes to rest, recovery. And then you also try to be a good coach and do all this stuff. People don't realize how much it takes. Like people have this fantasy, like I'm going to leave my corporate job or this because, you know, it requires X, Y, and Z, and then I'll be able to do whatever I want. And then they're slapped in the face with reality when it's like, all right, now you have to sacrifice sleep if you want to pay your bills. If you still want to be a great athlete, you have to learn to manage your stress. And when you're working for yourself, stress is extremely high, especially if you don't know if you can feed yourself or keep a roof over your head. And that's what I admire. Like a lot of people, I typically get along better with people, especially females like you and Chrissy, that have made it. Like no one's coming to hold your hand. You know, we're not trust fund babies. Like we have made it ourselves. And I think all three of us at one point, like, oh no, Chrissy, you shipped your car when you first moved, right?
Right.
Yeah, I didn't have a car, but then I remember, Erin, I was so proud of you when you posted your car and you were said, like, I know this might not seem like a big deal to some, but being a female that works for myself, like buying a car is a huge accomplishment. And that just made me like get goosebumps all over because I can relate to that so much. So I'm glad we're having this conversation, and I hope people that have a dream know what it takes.
Yeah, I remember that. That was such a big one. And it wasn't even like a fancy car. I got a Kia Soul. Like it's not an expensive car, but it was at 30 years old, I bought my first like new car. And like that was like such like a life win moment for me, which it wasn't anything fancy, but it was a big deal at the time.
It is a big deal.
Nice though, because you had a goal and then you achieved it and just like felt good and just like knowing you're capable. I know Brittany and I both have those points too where we're like, we don't know if we're going to make it. And suddenly coming out on the other side, like, okay, like holy shit, that was wild, but all right, we're good. Like we can kind of like relax, right? Like we know we're paying rent. So it's like, okay.
I want to get back to
oh yeah. What
no, I was
say?
going to say, I want to get back to Strongman and you, but I just have one other question, if you don't mind. I'm curious from both of you. So, you know how we talk about that like dreadful feeling of not being sure if we'll be okay? Do you still have that feeling sometimes? And if so, what do you do?
Oh, almost every day. It comes and goes. There is, I think, just a lot of anxiety that comes with trying to walk an unfamiliar path. Like I know that what I'm trying to do with my life doesn't have clear steps, and I don't really know of anyone that's doing exactly what I want to do. And like I like to look around at me, and like, you know, I'm 31, which I know is not old, but I look around at like all, you know, most of my friends are like following the steps, and they're like have jobs, and they're getting married and having kids and buying houses and like doing like the life steps. And there's a lot of times that I look at that, I'm like, damn, that looks a lot easier. Like that there's aspects of that seem really nice, but then I actually like reflect and think like that wouldn't make me happy. Like that's not what I want out of my life. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think that I would be miserable. But I think for years now, I've had kind of maybe an overly grand view of what I think I can achieve with my life. And I think ultimately be more disappointed with myself for not at least going for it.
Yeah, I think about that actually all of the time. Because I've lived so many places, and then I moved to the South, and first I was like 30 years old, hanging out with my friends, powerlifting every day or strongman every day in LA, doing online coaching things, collaborating. Then I moved to South Carolina, where they're like, I walk in a coffee shop and the barista thinks I'm like old, and like everyone's married at like 22 and have kids. I'm like, damn, did I just like, it's like a time warp. So it started making me think more about like those life steps and stuff like that. And I was like, damn, that is a path. If you just know that you're going to do exactly what your parents did, or, like that would actually be kind of comforting, but I would not be happy. I think about that all the time. So whenever things are hard, I'm like, yeah, but this is like way more fun and exciting. So I can totally relate to that. What is your vision for yourself? Like you said, you're like, I don't like, what are you chasing right now?
I want to be one of probably the first, I don't know, I'd say that confidently, like, I want to make a living as an athlete. Like and that's, I love coaching, but I would love to get to a point where I can coach on the side because I want to and enjoy it, not because I'm stressed about paying rent. And like, I want to make enough as an athlete that I can like, what I loved about the sport at first was like the community and meeting people and like checking out new gyms. And like, I would love to get to a point where I can make enough as an athlete to like travel and train with different people and see other gyms and like do like a whole training block with, like with one of you guys, or like just like that gets me excited. Like traveling and filming and doing like training vlogs like all over the world and connecting with more people makes me excited.
I love that, like a traveling professional strongwoman, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like ultimately like I have like career goals and like athlete goals, and like it's unclear exactly what it looks like, but I want to be the best strong woman of all time. And that's always going to be up for debate. Like that's a matter of opinion, but there's certain things that I want to accomplish, I think, to get there. But I want to land myself on the Mount Rushmore of strong women in terms of like my athletic career, and then just like life career and like financially. I'd like that to pay enough that I can live comfortably being an athlete and having that be my primary source of income.
Well, you're
it
definitely
does
on your
seem
way.
like, yeah, like you're on the path, and it seems like it's accelerated. Like, each year it's like gaining momentum. And I think it's really great that you can state your vision and your goals and stuff like that. For the longest time, I couldn't. So how do you know where you're going if you don't know, or can't even say it? So
I don't know exactly what that looks like, but the times that I feel like I've been happiest is when I get these crazy opportunities. Like I remember like Gymshark called me up and like, hey, can you come down to LA next month?
That was so cool.
I went and hung out with a bunch of like the Gymshark people. Like like that was a cool experience. Or like getting called like for the Giants show over in like UK. I'm like, hey, like pop over to Liverpool for a contest. Like the times that I've been like, I've just sat and been like, wow, my life is really cool. Have all been times that I've gotten to like travel somewhere, see new things, like be around people that I don't get to see on a daily basis, and like making new connections and new experiences. Like those are the times that I've been like this is really cool. Like I want more of that.
Was
Yeah,
there a first? Okay.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, it's all about, like, it's just all about, like, the snowball effect and gaining momentum. Because when we talked, I feel like maybe you're a little bit shyer to go out there and, like, ask for opportunities or, like, network and stuff like that. But it seems like you, like, actually went out there and put yourself out there, which I think is the hardest thing to do at first. Like, social media, you're like, why is this girl, like, getting attention? She's not even really strong or done anything. You know, it's like, because you just have to ask for it. And, you know, a lot until you meet the right people and your people. And those opportunities will start to, you know, come about even more. I mean, and you put yourself in the right place. So, you know, it wasn't just like, oh, I'm just being so lucky. It's, you know, you're doing the work. So that's really awesome.
I think a lot of people see other people's success and think that it was luck, but like, no one ever sees what goes on behind the scenes or like how much time went into something first before it popped off. And I'm guilty of that too. Like I'll see people, I'm like how are you so successful? And I know that shit, I catch myself. I'm like, you don't see what else goes on. Like you don't see how long they've been working toward this or what goes on behind the scenes. But there's a lot more to it. I think a big thing, I took a step. I've tried to push myself out of my comfort zone a lot the last few years. I very comfortably, naturally just live under a rock, and I like that's not really an option for the life that I want. So I've put myself like out there to the world so much more than I ever would have thought. And I think a little bit of convincing myself of, I don't know, sometimes I think like a little bit more of a sprinkle of narcissism would help a little bit. I don't know if I necessarily want that, but like faking confidence, even if it's not there, and like going into things like I have worked for this and I have earned this. I think 5 or 6 months ago, I got myself an agent, and I'm like, that felt really weird because I'm like, I'm not a big enough deal to have an agent. And then I had to stop and be like, why not? Like, yes, you are. Like, you are a big enough deal to have an agent. Like things like that, where I kind of convinced myself, like, who are you to fill in the blank? And then I was like, no, I absolutely should be doing those things.
Yeah, it's the question of why not me? And I always think that because I'm someone who's naturally kind of introverted and shy. But I have another client recently who kind of just got fed up with her job and everything like that, and kind of got fed up and said, everyone else is getting what they want. Why can't I? Why can't I? Just why not me? You know, and start making more decisions of getting stuff that she actually wants. So I think that's just
learning that like, the answer is always going to be no if you don't ask. Like,
yeah, right, exactly.
Like if you ask and the answer is no, then nothing changes about your life. And I think I had a lot of anxiety at first about like asking and being rejected. And then at some point I was just like, why? Like they say no, nothing changes about my life for the negative.
Are you the kind of person who's used to doing everything yourself though? Like, no, like I don't need help moving apartments. I will just move it all myself.
Yes.
Yeah, same. So yeah, yeah, it makes you, it means you're a sweet person, but also it's like, just sometimes like, you know, maybe you got to put on the war paint and write an email asking for something, you know, like just like pretend like you're, you know, someone else. Cause I get shy about that kind of stuff too.
Yeah.
Was there a first moment? I know you said the Gymshark in the UK, but do you remember specifically like when you asked for something and you got it that you were like, a light bulb went off? You were like, all right, I can do this, and it gave you more confidence?
I don't know. I guess I can't really think of what the first moment is. I think more recent. It's not the first, but like more recently.
Anything, yeah.
I remember I reached out to an agent about representing me. He works with a lot of CrossFit athletes. He doesn't work with any strongmen, and I'm aware that strongman's a hard sport. There's not a whole lot of money in it as of right now. But I was like, he's not going to take me on. But I just asked anyways, and he did have to think about it. We had a talk, and he's like, I have to think about this because like agents don't make money if you don't make money. So like he was like, I have to think about this and like make sure that like I think this is a good investment on my part too. And we had that second conversation where he's like, I really I looked over your social media. He's like, I really respect what you're doing. I respect like the work that I can see that you're putting in. And he's like, I'd like to take a chance on this. He's like, a couple of years ago, I probably wouldn't have, but like seeing that you're doing things that other people in the sport aren't, like, gave him some confidence, which I think in turn gave me confidence that I was doing the right thing. Because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing on social media. I'm like, I'm just going to put myself out there and try and see like what works. And like sometimes it doesn't work, but I'm going to do my best. And I think someone else seeing like, I see that you're putting in effort that other people aren't, and that matters to me, gave me confidence. I'm like, okay, I'm doing the right things.
Love that. Congratulations. That's huge. So, okay, I want to get into a little bit of the nitty gritty of training. And one question I specifically have is your training, because you've done multiple weight classes, when you are actively cutting to get into the weight class, do you find training to be harder, more daunting because you're in a caloric deficit?
Not really. I don't really know how to answer this without sounding like an asshole.
You don't.
Like, it's just different. So like, I've trained with so many open shows, and I feel like I've spent so much time like getting my strength up to hang with the open girls, that like doing worlds, none of the weights were heavy. It was a hard show. Like I had to train hard for it, and that's not like to discredit anyone else, but like the training itself didn't take as much of a toll because like I knew I could do all the weights. Like it's getting to the point at this point in my career, like doing like a 73 kg show, going into prep, I can already do all the weights. And so it doesn't have that like daunting feeling of like, I need to push to be able to do something. It's really just a matter of like, it's more skill development. And the really hard part is the diet. And so that's almost harder because like training itself, like the few hours of training are hard and like I work hard, but it doesn't like completely wreck me the way that like training for an open show does. But it's like the other 20 hours of the day are really hard. So it's just like, it just flip flops versus like right now. It's nice being able to eat, but like training is wrecking me. So it's just like, it flips, whether it's like training is hard or like the rest of my life is hard.
Yeah, I've noticed from coaching so many people that have had weight cuts and stuff, I almost feel like, and the athletes will say this to me after they're done with their cut and stuff, they like the diet because they feel more dialed in because then they're counting for almost like every minute of the day, like when they have to eat, when they have to prep, and then when they're training. You know, and then because it depends how you cut though. You do it a combination of dieting and then you do the last few pounds. You've done a couple different cuts from what I've seen, but you do the last few pounds in like a pretty easy water cut, right?
Usually this past one wasn't easy.
Do you want to talk
I was
about
following your progress. I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that last cut because every cut is so different.
Yeah. This last one was hard because we knew that Arnold invites hadn't gone out yet, but we knew that the goal was to be at the Arnold. Like the hope was to get that invite again and be back at the Arnold. So we knew that we couldn't really afford to lose much lean mass. Like if I wasn't really worried about doing an open show or other weight class shows, like it would have been easier just like, okay, we'll just lose more weight and get closer and not have to cut as much at the end. But I think because we were trying to hold on to as much body size as possible.
Where were you starting from?
I started dieting down from about 178.
Okay.
And we dieted down to about 171, 172.
Okay.
And then water cut the rest of it.
Which is not easy when you're someone that is lean. You have so much lean mass. No.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Oh no. Oh, there you go.
So that's 7 pounds, and that's just from being in a caloric deficit pretty much.
Yeah. And so I got pretty lean. So like there was a lot of like body recomp that happened during that because we did it pretty slowly over a long period of time. But then there was still like a 12-pound water cut at the end. It was pretty miserable. I don't know why. Like I've done 12-pound water cuts before, and like they're always hard. And like I've thought that I had a hard cut before, and looking back, I've never had a hard cut because that last one, like if I didn't have people there with me, I wouldn't have made it to weigh-ins. Like I couldn't see for like the last 2 hours. Like I got there and had to like pull up a chair and like scoot along because I couldn't really stand anymore. Like someone had to like help me into the tent and like take my clothes off for me and like put me on the scale and then like take me off. And like I don't really remember much of the check-in process. So like looking back, I'm like, oh, that was probably dangerous. And so I don't know if I would do it that way again. Fortunately, I've really figured out my refeed. I'm pretty good at bouncing back from weight cuts. So like I felt, obviously I performed fine over the weekend. But that was the first time that I was like, that got a little bit sketchy at the end.
Yeah. 12 pounds, if you think about it in terms, I always look at weight cuts and water cuts in terms of the percentage of what that person's weighing.
Mhm.
So if you look at where you were cutting from and your lean body mass, like that is going to be a hard cut because yes, the more muscle you have, the more water weight you can hold, but it just gets extremely because your body's fighting it. Your body's like, I do not want to do this. You start losing like fluid retention around your brain, and that's is where it gets dangerous, which is probably why you don't remember all of it. But I'm so happy that you knew how to properly refuel. Obviously, your performance speaks for itself. Do you want to talk about that? I don't know if there's like, coach secrets, but yeah, talk about like the first thing you did, because I know everyone kind of has their own little method.
So the mistake I made for the longest time was eating too much afterwards. I think and that it's so hard to do because you're just hungry and thirsty. And like, I feel like everyone, the first thing you want to do is like slam a bunch of water and go eat a huge breakfast. And I think that's the worst thing that you can do because hydration has to be the number one priority. And I think people fill up so much on food that then they don't keep drinking. And like, that's when people have, I think, really like significant performance decreases. It's really more to do with like hydration and electrolytes as opposed to like fuel. So I always try to get an IV within the first 2 hours. I try not to do a meal until I've had at least half a gallon of water with like electrolytes and a Pedialyte. I'll snack on like trail mix or something to get some carbs and salt in, but I try not to have like a meal for probably 4 or 5 hours after weigh-ins. And then I don't really eat like a big meal until dinner. So it's not really like super specific, but I more specific on like monitoring fluids throughout the day. And then food is actually kind of secondary.
Yeah. I'm so glad to hear you say you did the IV because when you're that depleted, you need, like you said, your brain, it's like Pavlov's law. Your brain wants to just go eat, a burger or a pancake or something, but your blood, you need to get all the electrolytes circulating through your blood. It's like osmosis. If you have a balloon and you overstuff it, it's going to burst. And the same thing happens to an athlete. I've had a lot of people that didn't listen to me, and then I get upset because then they have diarrhea and all these things that are
It's
inevitably
so hard to do
happen.
though. Like your brain is just in that like starvation mode. It's like all you want to do is eat, and it's so hard to make yourself not eat yet.
I almost feel like it's a learn from experience thing. Like we all have to once go through that terrible cut where you're sick and it affects performance. That way you can be like, okay, moving forward, I won't do that. I will listen to my coach.
Yeah, I always tell people like just wait for that like big greasy meal like after your contest, like
it's hard because don't eat things that are unfamiliar yet. And it sucks after weeks or months of dieting and like restricting. Like I know all I want is like eat a pizza or like eat something that I haven't gotten to eat. But it's like wait 3 more days. Like stick to your meal plan food. Stick to things that like your body knows and is already comfortable with, and like wait until after the show to eat all the things that you've been craving because like it's going to taste good, but you're not going to feel good after eating it.
No, exactly.
Yeah. How do you cut your water? Like you don't have to go too specific, but like you do like a water load, do you sweat, sauna? What do you do?
Oh, it depends on how big the cut is. So like for this one, I started my water load a week out. So the Thursday before, and it's like a slow ramp. It starts from like, I have a calculator. It's like a percent of body weight. But it ends up being roughly a little over a gallon on the first day. And then I ended at, I think like 2 3/4 gallons on Wednesday was the high day. No, Tuesday, because weigh-ins are Thursday morning for Worlds. But 2 days out is the biggest water day. So I think I was up to like 2 3/4 of a gallon on that day. And I think a mistake people make is cutting water too early. I think they get to that day before weigh-ins and they like panic and like, oh, we have to like cut everything out. But there's actually a lot of time. So like I keep my water pretty high until like 1 p.m. I'll do like, I think it was like 1 1/4 gallons before 1 p.m. the day before weigh-ins. And then that's when I cut it off. And a lot of times I'll do like a shot of espresso or something like that, just because that can kind of help flush out. I do a lot of like dandelion root, kind of helps. This time I had to go with some like stronger diuretics. Then there's the not glamorous stuff, the magnesium citrate, and like just clean everything out that last day. So, but I do think people cut water too soon oftentimes. And so I wait until 1 o'clock. So that's still, what is that, like 16 hours before weigh-ins? Just plenty of time.
And like, did you sweat? Did you bath or anything?
So the night before, I usually try to get within 4 pounds the night before. And so I bought one of those like little personal like saunas off Amazon with like your head sticks out the top. And I had that the night before. It did a little bit. It kept me sweaty, but like it didn't pull off a whole lot. So I did that for probably an hour and a half the night before, and I did 2 rounds of hot baths. And then the day of weigh-ins, I woke up at like 5. I did like 2 more rounds of hot baths, and then we went and found a sauna for the last little bit.
I love the Epsom salt baths. You just have to make sure you have someone with you. I feel like I'm like an addict when it comes to water manipulation. Actually, today I'm doing a 2-gallon day. Ooh. And I have something on Saturday, but I've been kind of like having a lot of fun. And especially now that like, I don't have severe weight cuts like I used to all the time. Now it's fun just to see what I can do. I'll be tweaking little things. I'll be like, okay, today my electrolytes, I'm going to double up, my magnesium, and then I'm going to put sea salt with iodine, 2 grams. It's just like a little science experiment to me. And I absolutely,
it's fun when you don't have the pressure
fun.
of like needing to make a certain weight. You can just kind of like experiment with it. That'd be kind of fun.
Exactly. Yeah. I had my first like weight cut weigh-in it was a week ago. Mm-hmm. And I was like, it's fun because now it's like, all right, I know I can predict exactly how many pounds I'm going to go up after. And then I'll have one for the Arnold too. Not severe, but it's just been it's fun to do it outside of strongman, I guess, in like a different sense. Because for strongman, I'd be so stressed out for it.
It's so cool. Like bodies are just cool. And like the ways that we can like change and manipulate our bodies. I get like nerdy about that. Like
me too.
Obviously in like the moment of like doing it for a meet when it's stressful is a different experience. But I think it's cool, like the things that we can do with our bodies.
After this, I'll just send you. I have this little chart that I give to clients and I just manipulate the data, but I have like 15 different color codes and I'll start it 10 days out. And it's like, if you're not within, 2.8% of the way in now, today we're going to do this. If you are, we'll exclude this. Yeah. I love it. So I'll send it to you. It's super fun.
I want it.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
I'll use it for the Arnold.
Yeah.
So Erin, do you think you'll be doing a 73kg show again anytime soon, ever?
A lot depends on how the Arnold goes this year. Okay. I think there's I'm trying not to, but I feel like I'm putting a lot of pressure on myself with this Arnold because I feel like this is kind of like, it's like a fork in the road depending on how this show goes. And so I haven't committed to anything else this year because everything else that I have planned going forward kind of depends on how well I do at this show. So it's hard to answer.
Do you want to walk us through the events and weights and how you feel about each one?
Sure.
For 4 weeks out? Yeah.
Yeah. So it starts with a max deadlift, which is fun. I like deadlifting. It's a hard one for me, like being a smaller girl in a field of giants. My deadlifts come a long way, but it's also not like my strongest event. The Arnold is hard for me because it's notoriously a very like heavy static show, and I'm not a static athlete. Like I shine in like athletic things and moving events. And so starting with something static like a deadlift, it's fun. For that one, I'm just going to hit like a personal goal. I know that I'm not going to place high in that event next to like Lucy and Nez and like Andrea. But I just have a personal goal of pulling 600 pounds at some point this year. I would love to do it at the Arnold on the big stage, but it's just been a fun one to train for personally. I'm just a small athlete.
I can't wait to see that in person. Mm-hmm. Oh my God. It's just so cool. Like we always talk about the evolution of strongwoman. And when I started, I literally remember it was a feat to get 405 for like a double or something. And now like that's nothing, like 600
now,
is
like, cool. I think the contest will start at like 600. Like that's when like most like girls will start coming in, which is crazy to me. It is. But it's cool.
It's really cool.
So,
all right, so max deadlift.
Max deadlift. The second one is an overhead medley. So it's a circus dumbbell, natural stone press, and then a trump log. So it's a 154 dumbbell into a 175 stone press. And then you have an option of a 220 or 270 log. And then obviously like any reps on the heavier log beats what reps on the lighter one. I would feel a lot better about that one if it didn't start with dumbbell. Dumbbell is kind of my Achilles heel of strongman. I was really hoping to not have one this year. 154 is my PR. Like that's the most I've ever hit. So I'll be trying to match my PR. Dumbbell training always goes really poorly for me, and then something magical happens at the show usually. So I think it'll be fine, but it's just stressful for me. It's just a different mentality between like weight class shows where it's like I know I can hit the weights and it's a matter of like performing well and doing the event well, as opposed to like I just want to get one rep. But it's fun. I like the event.
I know how you feel on that one. That's how I feel about, on a different level, the Arnold this year, coming from nationals. I'm like, oh, this is heavy. This is more like, can I do this weight?
It's like it's a very different,
so different
kind of mentality switch in how you have to approach the events. So that's number 2. Number 3 is the frame carry up the ramp, which I'm actually more excited about than I thought I was going to be. Grip has notoriously not been a strength of mine. I have comically small hands. No one ever believes me. But last year I made it 4 meters. So my goal is just to beat that. I think like half the girls didn't finish it last year and they made it heavier this year. But I've hit more in training at this point in prep than I hit in training for it last year. So I feel good about how training is going for it. I just really want to finish it. I know that's a really big ask because it's very heavy, and I think last year I made it was like a third of the way up. So I would be happy with beating that, but I would be thrilled with finishing it.
Still have 4 weeks to go, and you're already better than last year, so it's looking bright.
Yep. So that's cool. So that's day 1. That's how day 1 ends. And we have 3 events on day 2. I think it starts with the jerk, so it's a max jerk out of a rack. Which is cool. And like, that's part of what I love about this sport is that like, I've been doing this for so long and there will still be things in shows that I've never done before.
Yeah. I've never seen that.
Which I've seen it at a couple shows. I think I had it at World Strongest Man a couple years ago, but I've never done it in a show, which is what's been cool. Like I hired an Olympic weightlifting coach and we've been working together like every other week and I'm learning how to behind the neck jerk. It's really hard to learn something completely new in 8 weeks. So we're doing our best. I really have zero idea at this point what I'm going to hit. We've kept it light and technical at this point. We haven't really gone heavy yet. So I don't know how to expect to perform in the event, but I'm just having fun training it and like learning something new.
I feel like that's going to benefit your dumbbell too, even though not directly, but just learning to get, a different skill. It's so explosive. So that'll be cool to see.
Yeah, learning the new technique and like the dip and drive mechanics, and also like the shoulder mobility that I've had to work on in order to get under the bar for the jerk. I think is probably helping my other overheads because my shoulders are awful. I've like been forced to work on that a little bit.
So. As a spectator, I think that's going to be a really exciting event. I think it's fun. I would love that event. I want to split jerk a barbell so bad right now.
Yeah, you always do that. Yeah.
But it'd be cool to see what everyone puts up.
That's the first event of day 2.
Yep.
Okay.
And then the second event, we still don't really know what it's going to look like. It's called the Timber Trial. It's a log front carry into a sled drag.
Oh, that sounds fun.
We don't really know what it's going to look like, but like I'm excited for that. Like that's my type of event. Like carries and medleys and like conditioning focused stuff. Don't really know how it's going to feel, but I'm excited for that. I think depending on how heavy the sled drag is, because if it's stupid heavy, like people with more body weight behind them are always going to have an advantage on like a heavy sled drag. But I'm excited for that one.
Is that the last one, or what?
Yeah.
And
then so there's 3 events each day. So that was 5, and then the last one is a stone to shoulder. So it's just a natural, or not natural, Atlas stone to shoulder with no tacky.
Classic.
Which I think is gonna. I think there's going to be some unexpected results because I know who in the lineup is good at stone to shoulder, But everyone that I know that's done like really heavy stone to shoulder has done it with tacky, and like
Mhm.
taking tacky away really changes the event.
It does.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, so it almost benefits you. You usually don't train with tacky, you know.
yeah, which is hard because like it's been tough. I've trained almost exclusively with tacky the last year. The Arnold last year I hurt my bicep, and tacky stones were really
Yeah.
painful. Like stones for a while I couldn't do, and then even when I brought them back, like I did admittedly rely on tacky too much because I couldn't really get the squeeze that I needed to. And so like now kind of like having to relearn how to do a stone without tacky, it's been good for me. It's been frustrating,
Yeah.
but I think good. I'm finally at a point where like I know it's been long enough that like my arm's fine, but I think there is that like psychological that voice that like wants to convince me that it still hurts. And like I know it's fine, but it's hard to like get over that.
I also want to talk about the evolution of your style. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but was it OSG 3 years ago where you first did the war paint?
21.
21. Okay. Oh my God, was it
Yep.
already 21? Okay, so I remember that and I thought it was so cool. And I didn't really like know you then. Like I knew who you were, but we didn't talk. And then, once we became friends, we started talking about like hair and makeup and nails and stuff. So, and when I first started strongman, like I was weird because I'd wear like lipstick or something, but now everyone does their own thing. So talk to us about how that's made you. I feel like it's part of your brand with the war paint. Like Christy said earlier, like put on the war paint and just, do it. But yeah, talk to us about how that kind of came to be. And yeah, obviously you love doing it. It looks awesome on you. I feel like it gives you a really badass look.
Thanks. So I started doing that in 21. That was like, I don't want to say like my first like big show, because I'd done like big shows, but that was like the first like, it was Worlds. Like that was a big international show. I've always gotten horrible stage fright, like my entire life. I've like performance anxiety and stage fright, and that used to really kind of mess with me in shows, especially like the first event, which is always overhead. I would always underperform because like my legs would just like be shaky, and like I had to figure out a way to like to knock that off, because like that was I was underperforming just because I was nervous, and I think nerves are okay. But I started doing the war paint as just like a way to like become someone else. I think I posted it one time and someone referred to it as controlled dissociation, and I love that. Like that's kind of what it is. It's like I'm like a little bit like dissociating. Like we're not Erin anymore for the day while this is on. And I think it kind of gave me permission to be at shows how I want, because I think most people that had ever met me at a show probably thought I wasn't very friendly, because like some people are nervous chatters, or like everyone's different at a contest, but I kind of keep to myself. I don't really like to talk a whole lot. I kind of like just like to be in my own head and observe and visualize and think about what I'm doing. Um, and it always like I didn't want to like feel like a bitch for like not talking to people. And I feel like the war paint almost like gave me permission to like I am someone else today. Like we're here to do a job, and we can be friends later. And it kind of created like a separation for me. Um, and I remember I was really nervous when I first went out with it. I'm like, people are going to think this is dumb. Like, should I be embarrassed? Like, is this like a weird thing to be doing? And I think it helps that I won. Like, I think that, like, I think it would have felt kind of silly if I did all that, and then shit the bed at the show. Um, but it was really cool. I got a really positive response from it, especially talking about like why I did it. It allowed me to connect with so many people that were like, "Oh my God, I feel the same way." And then people like sending me pictures of their war paint and like, "Look what I did for my show." And I someone like a year or two ago got a tattoo of it, and she like sent me
Oh my
pictures.
gosh.
She's like, "I just love the message," and like she got a tattoo of my war paint, and like that's crazy to me.
That's cool.
It's cool that it's like it's allowed me to connect with people in a way that I never would have expected. Because I think that that's a really common experience, that like everyone gets nervous before shows, and it's like, okay, well, we can talk about like honoring those nerves, and then how can we like redirect our energy in a more positive way.
Yeah.
No,
It takes
I
balls to do
appreciate you
something
talking
different.
about that for sure, because I feel the same way too with like nerves, and it definitely makes sense. So even if you don't put war paint on, you can kind of like mentally pretend that you did, get yourself in that mode, because I'm the same way. It's so funny because we're like there to do a job, and you train so hard for this moment, and then you're like, does that person think I'm a bitch because I'm not talking to them? It's like, who cares? Like really, why are we even thinking about that right now? You know,
But
like
people do, I
just
think. But
yeah.
I think it's okay to not quite be yourself in that environment. 'Cause, like, I think everyone handles that environment differently, and I think I even too, like, I would subconsciously, I think, judge people about how they acted at shows, and then I had to like step back and realize that, like, I don't think it's fair to judge anyone like how they act in that environment, because everyone processes and handles it differently. And like, there's been times that like I'll compete with someone and like we won't talk, and then as soon as the contest is over, like we'll go out and get a drink and be friends. And I think that's okay. Like everyone needs to find that space within themselves, and like we can be friends, but when we're competing, we don't have to necessarily be best friends on the contest floor. Like I'm going to cheer you on. I know it's like a weird mentality where it's like, I want you to do well, I'm going to cheer you on. But at the end of the day, like we're both here to do a job. And I think anyone who takes it seriously has that like mutual understanding and respect of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. So right now, so something I always like picking high level athletes' brains about, and 90% of the time I pretty much get the same answer where they like to be like type A OCD. What does your day to day look like with eating, training, doing, coaching, all the sponsor career stuff, working with an agent? Walk us through like a typical Erin Murray day in the life.
Right now, I don't have a really set routine, which I don't love.
I figured.
But because I have like online clients, and I do some in person. I coach a little bit at Dungeon, but I also do house calls. So I train some people, more like gen pop people that can't get into the gym. So like I have some like older patients, or like or not patients, clients, like older clients, or like clients with newborns, like that can't get into the gym. So I like go to their house and train with them there, which is really cool, and I love doing it. But it makes my schedule really sporadic because that schedule is different every day. Um, it kind of depends, but like a training day, like um, I mean, my nutrition is the most time consuming part. Like eating every 3 hours is something that gets structured into every day. But like things that I have to do throughout the week, like I do mobility every day, do my cold plunge every day. Like I will admit I am horrible at meal prepping like in advance. So like I meal prep every day because I just can't get in the habit of doing that like one day a week. Training usually lasts 4 to 5 hours. So that's a pretty big chunk of my day.
How many days per week are you
I'm doing
training?
4 right now.
Okay, that's a lot.
So 4 is usually the lowest I'll go. There have been times in like off season that I'll do up to 7 or 8 sessions a week because I'll have 2-a-days sometimes. So that was a big part of why I chose to kind of come back from working a job with like a set schedule every day, is so that I had the luxury of schedule flexibility to do stuff like that. So it's hard to answer because it really depends on the day. Like there's times that like my entire day is centered around recovery, meal prep, training, mobility work, body work session, like a massage, like dry needling. Like there's days that like a athlete days, and then there's days that I spend hours at my computer writing programs and coaching people out of their houses. So
I love
it's
how
hard
you
to answer.
answered
Every
that.
day is different.
Yeah, I something I'd love to ask, and you answered a lot like Nancy Johnson, because when we had interviewed her, she was prepping in school, working, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that we all say the same thing about like, because we're such high achievers, we all have sporadic schedules, and it makes me really happy to hear that like it kind of not that I want you to be stressed out, but it makes me feel validated that when you don't have the same schedule, you also feel stressed out, because even now, like I'm not a full-time athlete anymore. Like I compete in a couple things, but Wednesdays, because we do the podcast recording, is the only day where it's like set. And I was just yesterday I felt so overwhelmed, and I was like, what the hell is wrong with me? And I was like, oh, it's because like the past couple days I had expo and my training schedule changed and I feel out of control. But like you said, like that's adapting to being a career, having a career and all that. It's like, okay, but yeah, I don't love it. I like when every minute of every day is laid
It'd be
out.
nice to have like the same schedule every day, but like I have like my scheduled sessions with clients that kind of stay the same every week. I have my like scheduled training time. So like if I know how many days a week I'm going to be training and like how long the training sessions are, like that's get scheduled in. So I have like set times that I do my training. And then everything else I need to do just kind of has to get filled in around, because those are the priorities. Like training is the number one priority. And then in-person clients, like schedule-wise, get priority because that is scheduled at a certain time. And then all the rest of the work just has to get filled in when I have time to do it.
Do you do anything, because you said you do mobility, you do your cold plunge, but that's kind of under the umbrella of being an athlete.
Mhm.
Do you do anything that's like for you that helps you feel recovered? That's like an escape from just training?
Ooh, it's a hard question to answer. A little bit, so kind of mixed. There is a place that I like to go. I try to go at least once a month. It's like a Korean spa, but they have like hot tubs and cold tubs, which is like stuff that I can do at home. But there's something like that's like mentally recharging about going somewhere where like I have to lock my phone in a locker. There's no electronics. Like I have to shut off the world. I can't be working. I can't check in on my emails real quick. And like I go in and there's like 4 or 5 hours that I'm like actually separated from the world. So like even though I'm doing the same things that I would be doing for recovery at home, like taking myself into that environment, I think is really valuable, like mentally. So I try to do that at least once a month. It actually lets me like slow down and like read a book or zone out or take a nap or like just sit with my thoughts and not feel guilty about not being productive because like that's what I'm there to do. I think that's the biggest thing. For a while, it actually has been a while because I think as my friends get busy with their own lives, it's increasingly harder. But like we used to have a group of girls that we'd get together once a week. That started as a bachelor night. We would sit and watch The Bachelor, and then it just kind of like continued into dinner once a week and stuff like that. I think is important. It's been a little while just because I think people just get busy, but it's hard for me. I've been trying to add more things to my life that are not strongman related and just for fun. I have a hard time with that though, admittedly.
Yeah, I totally understand. Like it's hard with the balance because you to have your responsibilities. Like you have to do all these things for training. You got to pay the bills. I can totally relate to that. And but I love Korean spas. I wish we had them here. I used to go to them all the time in LA. I was like, pay $20, then you get to just
So
go in
nice.
this hot tub full of tea. And like this sauna over here is so fun. It's just that's why like I hate flying in airplanes because they scare me. But I also love it because I like no one can bug me here. Like I just have to be present. And
it's nice sometimes. I think sometimes I get
yeah.
stressed with that because I do think sometimes I have a hard time with just relaxing because there's all like
Mhm.
you guys know, like when you have your own business and like especially with coaching, like there's always work to do. Like
Mhm.
it's not like a job that I can just like clock out of and then go home and like shut it off. And so it's hard to sit and not think about like,
Right.
should I be working on a program or should I be checking in on clients or watching videos or so like actually going somewhere where the intention is
Mhm.
to shut that off, I think is really important because it's hard to just sit at home and choose to not do it.
Oh, I
Mhm.
know. I get more anxiety. Like at being home, we've talked about this a lot, is really hard for me because, like you said, there's always something to do. Like living with someone has been the healthiest thing I've ever done because he'll like restrain me and be like, stop it. He's like, he has like a hard 10 p.m. rule for me. So that's been helpful.
Mhm.
One thing I was dying to ask you, because we talked about this, because I know we are very alike with our brains and bodies not loving sleep.
Mhm.
We've been successful off no sleep. We've taken trazodone. What's that looking like these days?
It's hard. It's really hard when I'm in the midst of a hard contest prep. So it sucks. I've always been bad at sleeping, which feels so stupid that that's like a thing that someone could be bad at. But I took sleeping pills for a very, very long time. Um, I was very resistant to coming off of them. It was actually my mom who suggested I switch to smoking weed. And for the longest time, I was like, I don't do drugs. Like, I'm not that person. Um, I eventually did make the switch because like sleeping pills just made me feel like shit the next day. Like I would be asleep, but it didn't really feel like good sleep. And so I'm still not good at it. That's kind of like the only way that I can. And it is hard in like a hard contest prep. I'm just tired all the time.
Yeah,
Because I
I
do
noticed.
feel like I need like 10 to 12 hours a night to feel recovered when like training is really hard. And like that's just not realistic in life all the time.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Um,
especially, yeah, because when I'm the same way. Like my sleep will be really bad when I'm like in prep because like my CNS is fried. Christy, do you have any advice for us? I feel like you're an awesome sleeper.
No, I'm like, man, I have no excuse. I should be better than I am because I'm not sleeping. I hit the pillow. I'm like, I'm not tired. I have the zoomies. I'm like snoring.
Zoomies.
But I'm sorry. Like Gary's gotten really jealous of me before. He's like, you fall asleep just so fast and easily. But I struggle with nightmares, like waking up. Yeah. So if I'm stressed or in prep, I will wake up and like feel like I'm screaming. And so that's how I know I'm stressed. And sometimes it happens in prep. It hasn't happened in this prep. But what's helpful for me, and this might be stuff that you already are doing with like sleep hygiene and stuff. And like Brittany said, like living with someone who's like not as like Gary's so normal. He's like, okay, we're going to go. The TV's just downstairs. We turn off the TV, go upstairs. We don't go on our phones in the bed, read a book, and like there's no light, and then you fall asleep. It's just like a good routine. So before, when I was living on my own, I was, still scrolling, YouTubing or reading stuff, and just a lot of this stuff online would trigger my anxiety a lot, whether it's like the news, like you might be aware of it, but just like, I think that just kept me a little bit more wired. So if you do have your phone in bed, but I know a lot of people still have problems with sleep, even though it's like, just don't use your phone or read a book. And it's like, well, Christy, I still can't sleep. So I hear it with my clients all the time. But for me, that's made a big difference. Being like this, having a routine, this is bedtime. Mm-hmm. There's no TV, there's no phone. You read a book and you go to sleep.
I will admit, currently, I'm not the best at all of that. It is frustrating because I feel like I've done all the good sleep hygiene things. Like I've done the whole, like do every single thing right. And even if I get to a point where like I can't stay asleep, and I think especially I'm always a light sleeper. I always have a hard time staying asleep. I think especially like in a really hard contest prep where my body is really achy. I have like, especially my shoulders, like I can't lay on like one side. So I have to move so much at night to like reposition because like I'm just hurting, and I wake up every single time I have to move. And so it's like I feel like every like 20-30 minutes all night I'm like waking up to like reposition, and then I can fall back asleep, but I do feel like I wake up like 20 times a night to turn over.
That's one thing. It's funny because I took a year off upper body, and I remember I was sleeping better because I wasn't in that like constant shoulder pain. And especially lately, I'm trying to build my shoulders, and the same thing. I have a body pillow, and I was actually having a nightmare the other night that like someone was squishing me, and I woke up and I was like, oh my God. I was like, I had to like wake up. It was like 3 a.m. and my boyfriend was like, what are you doing? I was like, I just have to do some shoulder mobility for a few minutes.
Yeah.
So
it's real though. Like that's right now the hardest part about sleeping is like there's no way to lay down that I can actually be comfortable for more than like 30 minutes at a time.
All right. We need a Tempur-Pedic sponsorship for you.
Yes.
That's who you're going to reach out to next. I don't have one, but I want one so bad. Like
that'd be a game changer.
One that like, adjusts your body and goes up and down. Maybe that's like cooling or something.
All three of us can try and get that.
I will say something that it's really hard to make myself do it, but the nights that I cold plunge right before bed helps. And it's so, especially this time of year, because it's like 20 degrees at night, and like I open the door and I'm like, there's no way I'm getting in there. But times that I like a cold plunge, dry off, and then go straight to bed, it does help. It's just hard to make myself do it.
It does feel nice afterwards, but like Brittany's seen me in a cold plunge from Brittany Beth's house.
She does not like
panic. Like it triggers my like fight or flight. So like it's so. Oh my God! I would rather do anything else than go in a cold bathtub, especially outside in the cold. Like, oh my God! When I see you guys posting that, I'm just like get goosebumps. And I jump into cold water all the time, but there's something about going into a bathtub. It's so hard.
It's different. I'm so annoyed that it works though, because like I do feel better afterwards, and every time I'm like, God damn it! It's like I got to keep doing it then. It's one of those things that like I wish it didn't work because I don't want to do it, but it does make me feel better. So I make myself.
Something else you might want to try if you don't already too, because I don't take trazodone anymore either, which I'm really proud of. I'll do Benadryl occasionally, but I got really good earplugs, like ones that are for concerts, and a sleep mask, because I'm the same way. Like if I can even see like the slightest thing, like if something moves or if there's like the slightest thing, I get like, I need sensory deprivation. Like I don't like anything. So that's been helping. And then I'll put a noisemaker on and then I do NSDR before. I find I get the best sleep when I do a 20-minute NSDR because I can't meditate. Like I've tried, it's just not my thing.
I've tried so hard. I can't do it.
But that seems to help. The earplugs, they were like $20 earplugs. And at first I was like, this is stupid. Like, why can't I just use regular ones? But it's been kind of a game changer, especially because I really struggle when like traveling at a hotel.
Yeah.
I'm like the person, like I'll bring duct tape because if there's like a slight, like if there's like a TV plugged in or something, I'm like, that haunts me. I'm like crazy.
Cover it all up.
It's honestly kind of embarrassing when I have to like I Christy, I think we had to the Olympia or something. I think I warned you. I was like, sorry if I'm annoying, just kick me. Like I have to do all these things. I have a night guard.
It's okay. You know me. I just fell right asleep. I was like, I'm tired. Good night.
Yeah. So.
What a skill.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's one thing I'm good at.
A lot of
one thing I'm actually good at.
It's funny, Erin, though, because a lot of people, like until I started talking about it and like looking up studies, like a lot of people struggle with sleep. So, anyways, all right, so we asked a lot of questions. Is there anything else that you want to talk about? Or Chrissy, did you have any other questions?
Well, I know we probably need to wrap it up soon because we've been here a while. I just want to, real quick, I was curious about your, you are coaching with Laws, and I'm like such a fan. I always listen to their Laws and Liz. Was that, how has that been? Was an adjustment changing coaches? Like, I know it's so hard to like give your trust to someone, right? Like, give me my training. Like, it's just so crazy. But how has that been?
It's been good. I think it is. It's hard. It's always hard. And it's, I think, hard being a coach.
Okay. Yeah.
Because like, I always have like what I would do. And like, I have to let go of that. But that's the same with like anyone I work with. That's something that like I have to let go of. It's been great. The hardest thing for me, he doesn't live here. And so like, that's hard. But other than that, like, he's just a great person. And I think I ultimately decided to work with him. So I thought about different coaches, and the vibe in talking to him just felt good. Like I felt like he cared about me as a person just as much as me as an athlete. And that, especially at that point in my life, what I was looking for was really important to me. Someone that would kind of like help me keep sight of the bigger picture and not get like so tunnel visioned and like stressed out about like metrics. And for me, that's been really good. So someone that kind of like mellows it out. And it's like, there is not coming from a place of like not caring, but like there is more to life than strongman. Like we can take this very seriously and work very hard and like have these big goals and still accept that there is more to life than strongman. And I think that was something that I really needed at the time.
Yeah, and it's good to hear it from someone as accomplished as him and been around for so long too. So it's like, you can take his life experience and trust him. But I totally get it. It's so easy to get wrapped up and stressed out. And when you get to a point where the fun gets sucked out of it, like I kind of reached that point recently where I was like, kind of make a perspective, like a shift in some way. Because it does take up a lot of your time, right? It's taking up most of your life. So
yeah, and it's at the end of the day,
enjoy it. Make it enjoyable.
It's fun. Like we all started this because we liked it.
Right.
And I think it's easy to forget that at some point. And like you can take something seriously and still work hard and have fun doing it. Like they don't have to be mutually exclusive.
I agree. Okay, my last question is just a really fun, simple, easy one. You can only have one meal for the rest of your life. What is it?
Sushi.
Good choice. Unlimited,
oh my
right?
Gosh, I want some.
Yep. Like there's like variety there. Like there's like different types of sushi. You can keep it interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And then we'll put your social media in the links, but where can people find you for your social media, coaching, all that?
Mostly Instagram. I'm mostly on Instagram. e.murray_pro.strongwoman. I'm trying to get back into YouTube, so I'll be vlogging my entire last block of Arnold prep. So if you want to follow along on what I'm doing, I've been vlogging all my workouts, so you can see what training looks like too.
Awesome. I watched your last one of squats and split jerks.
Yep.
Awesome.
We got deadlifts today, so that'll come up in the next
Thank
couple
you
days.
so much. And we're all going the Arnold. So
Oh, cool.
I'll be watching you. Excited for that max deadlift on day 1. So let's all try to meet up at some point.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Erin.
All right. Thank you, guys.